This lesson will teach you how to lay out a pantograph pattern using the basic panto stacker. From the main menu, we first need to create the file we'll use to sew out the pantograph on our quilt. In the Design and Create menu, select Pantograph. Depending upon what you were doing with Quilt Path prior to this tutorial, you may be asked to set your safe area. Follow the prompts on the screen to set it. This is the Panto Stacker's screen. For a tour of all the buttons, please watch the Easy Panto Stacker lesson. The first thing we need to do is tell Quilt Path that we'd like to use the basic panto stacker instead of Easy. Tap on Easy and select Basic. We have lots more control over the panto layout when using Basic. First, let's enter the size of the quilt we've been working with. The height is 32 and the width is 42. Remember that those aren't the exact dimensions of our quilt top. We want to ask Quilt Path to make our pantograph layout a bit bigger than we need, just in case the quilt top isn't perfectly square. Now tap on Select Pattern and tap on Continuous Line Patterns. Scroll down and find Triangle Arcs. Right now, we have only one row and only one pattern. Let's play around and determine how many pattern repeats we want and how many rows we'd like. Tap the plus button next to the pattern indicator. Let's bump it up to 7 patterns for now, and tap the plus button next to the rows, and I think 8 rows looks pretty good. By the way, we could have tapped the actual number and a keypad pops up where we could have entered our numbers, but we just used the buttons. We could also have tapped the pattern height number or the pattern width number and entered the number in manually that way as well. We have a couple of new buttons for nesting controls. You'll recognize the top button from our Easy Panto Stacker lesson. Tap the center button and you'll see that our patterns are no longer connected. This button keeps the aspect ratio with which the pattern was designed and centers the repeats. The button below it also disconnects our patterns, but it centers the designs using the edges of the quilt. These 2 buttons are handy when stitching out individual motifs in a border. We're just doing an edge-to-edge pattern, so let's click back up on our nesting button to join up all of our repeats. You can check down at the bottom to be sure you've selected Nest Ends. There's a lot of empty space between the motifs on this pattern. I'd like to offset every other row to add more interest and to fill the gaps. With the basic panto stacker, I can unhighlight the rows I do not wish to alter, or if I have all of the rows selected, I can tap on Alternate, and it will select every other row for me. We will talk about the next set of buttons in a minute. Let's stagger every other row. We can see that every other row is dark blue, so we can see which rows will be affected with our buttons. Tap on Stagger. Now we have every other row offset. In the basic mode, we can even fine-tune the stagger. Select the step you want to use first. In this case, let's select Big, and tap the right arrow button. Did you see every other row jump to the right? Depending on the size step you choose, you can have complete control on how the patterns are staggered. Let's click on Undo to get back to where we started. For the rest of our changes, we'll be working with all the rows, so tap on All to be sure that every row is dark blue. The pink portions of the pattern are the areas that were wrapped from one side to the other to fill in the gaps created by the stagger we requested. Tap on the horizontal wrapping button at the bottom. This button has 3 stages you can toggle between. One setting shows no horizontal wrapping. One shows the pattern falling off only on the right side. One setting shows the pattern wrapping on both sides of the row. Be sure the blue dot is in the middle so that we have pattern wrapping on both sides of our rows. Just above that button is the vertical wrapping button. This will allow us to fill in some of those gaps at the top and bottom of our panto once we bring the rows closer together. Let's make sure the vertical wrapping is selected, and let's deselect the Fit button. Fit forces Quilt Path to keep your pattern within the top and bottom boundary. However, we want this pattern to flow and fill all the space. Let's adjust the size of the pattern to fill the available space. Make sure all the rows are dark blue so we know we are talking to all of them. Tap on size and select the step size you want to use. I'm using medium. Now tap on the increase button until you like how the patterns come together. To really see what the vertical wrapping button does, toggle it on and off to see its effects. I prefer it to be on for this pattern. Just for fun, tap on the alternate button to select every other row and tap on the flip button. Now every other row is flipped. Interesting look, right? Use the zoom menu to get a better look at the design we've created. You can tap and hold to move around the design too. Click on the Show All button in the zoom menu to go back to our full view. At this point, you could tap on the Quilt as Rows button if you are ready to stitch everything out, or you can save it. Let's save this layout in our Panto Layouts folder. I'm going to name mine Triangle Arcs E2E Basic 32 by 42. Before we end, I want to show you a neat feature. Make sure all the rows are selected or bright blue. Tap on Select Pattern and tap on your continuous line patterns. Scroll down and tap on the Ornament pattern. Tap Open. Do you see what happened? Quilt Path kept your offset, your horizontal, and your vertical wrapping, your size, your number of rows, everything. All it did was replace the triangle arc pattern with the ornament pattern. This is the end of the basic panto stacker lesson. Be sure to watch the lesson on how to stitch out a pantograph.